Trust is like a bank account. You make deposits for years, then discover someone's been making unauthorized withdrawals the entire time. My name is Douglas Mercer, and I used to believe in friendship. 38 years old, IT consultant for mid-sized companies around Boston, married to Pamela for 12 years. We have a son, Ben, who's 15 and thinks I'm moderately embarrassing but tolerable. Standard suburban life, complete with mortgage payments, lawn care arguments, and the kind of routine that makes you wonder if you're living or just going through the motions. Kevin Walsh has been my best friend since college. We met during freshman orientation, bonded over terrible cafeteria food and worse hangovers. He became the brother I never had, best man at my wedding, godfather to Ben, the guy who helped me move furniture and borrowed my tools without asking. Real estate agent, naturally charming, the type who could sell ice to penguins and make them feel grateful for the privilege. Kevin married Diane 5 years ago. She's a nurse at Boston General, practical and kind, with the sort of no-nonsense attitude that keeps Kevin's ego from floating away completely. They seemed happy, or at least as happy as any married couple navigating the complexities of shared checking accounts and bathroom schedules. Pamela works in human resources for a marketing firm downtown. She's always been image-conscious, the type who coordinates her handbag with her shoes and remembers everyone's birthday. Lately, though, she's been different, distant. Late nights at the office became routine, girls' nights out multiplied, and conversations between us grew shorter, more functional. "Working late again?" I'd ask when she'd text at 7:30. "Big project, don't wait up." But something felt wrong. Call it intuition, call it paranoia, call it the accumulated wisdom of watching too many marriages implode in slow motion. The signs were subtle: new perfume, sudden interest in the gym, phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. I tried talking to Kevin about it during our usual Thursday night drinks at Murphy's pub. "Marriage goes through phases," he said, signaling the bartender for another round. "Diane and I barely spoke for 3 months last year. Now we can't shut each other up. This feels different." "Different how?" "Like she's somewhere else, even when she's sitting right next to me." Kevin leaned back in his chair, studying me with the expression he reserved for difficult clients. "You're overthinking it, Doug. Pamela adores you, always has." The certainty in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it felt rehearsed. 2 weeks later, at Suzanne Cole's backyard barbecue, I watched Kevin and Pamela together. Nothing obvious, just the way they avoided eye contact, how they positioned themselves on opposite sides of the patio, the careful choreography of two people working very hard to appear normal. Suzanne, our mutual friend and neighborhood gossip coordinator, was in her element, flitting between conversations like a social butterfly with attention deficit disorder. She thrived on other people's drama, collecting secrets like some people collect stamps. "Tara was telling me the most interesting story," Suzanne whispered to a cluster of wives near the drink table. I was close enough to overhear while pretending to examine her husband's new grill. "Some people just have no boundaries, you know? I mean, there are rules about these things." The wives nodded with the synchronized enthusiasm of a support group. I caught fragments, something about hotel receipts and suspicious behavior, and poor thing probably has no idea. My stomach tightened, but I told myself it was probably about some other couple, some other marriage circling the drain. That night, Pamela came home from the barbecue and went straight to bed without our usual post-party debriefing. No analysis of who wore what or said what to whom. No shared eye rolls about Suzanne's latest drama. Just a quick, "I'm exhausted," and the sound of our bedroom door closing. I sat in the living room, nursing a beer and trying to convince myself that everything was fine. My wife was tired. My best friend was loyal. The whispered conversations and meaningful glances were products of my imagination. The receipt changed everything. It happened 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday evening that started like any other. Kevin stopped by to borrow $200, Something about a client payment being delayed and needing cash for a deposit. Normal enough. We'd been lending each other money for years. "I'll pay you back Friday," he said, accepting the bills with his usual easy smile. "No rush." He pulled out his wallet to tuck the money away, and that's when it happened. The leather billfold opened wider than intended, revealing the organized chaos of credit cards, business cards, and receipts. Kevin was methodical about his expenses, tax deductions, he always said, and kept everything sorted by date. But one receipt was in the wrong section. Hotel Grandview, downtown Boston. Date: 3 weeks ago. The same night Pamela had texted about working late on that big project. Room charge for 1 night, 2 guests, champagne service, and there, in Pamela's distinctive handwriting, her signature on the bottom line. The moment lasted maybe 3 seconds. Kevin snapped the wallet shut, made some joke about needing better organization, and left with promises to return the money by week's end. But those 3 seconds were enough. I sat in my kitchen afterward, staring at nothing, while my world quietly rearranged itself around this new information. The late nights, the distance, the careful choreography at social gatherings, it all made sense now. Perfect, horrible sense. My wife and my best friend. The 2 people I trusted most in the world. I could have confronted them immediately, could have screamed and thrown accusations and demanded explanations. But anger, I've learned, is like wine. Sometimes it improves with age, and I had a better idea. Diane's birthday was coming up in 2 weeks. Suzanne was hosting the party naturally, and we were all invited. All of us. The happy couples, the trusted friends, the people who thought they knew each other's secrets. I spent those 2 weeks planning. Not revenge exactly, justice. There's a difference, though I'll admit the distinction was largely philosophical. First, I needed proof. Real, undeniable, photographic proof. The next time Kevin came by, which he did, right on schedule, to return my $200, I was ready. "Want a beer?" I offered. "Can't stay long. Diane's making dinner." But he accepted the beer, and we sat in my living room, making small talk about work and weather and the Red Sox's chances this season. Normal conversation between normal friends, if you ignored the fact that one of us was planning to destroy the other's marriage. When Kevin went to the bathroom, I acted. His wallet was right there on the coffee table, practically asking to be examined. I opened it, found the receipt exactly where I expected it to be, and photographed it with my phone. 3 pictures from different angles, clear enough to read every detail. Hotel Grandview, 2 guests, champagne service, Pamela's signature, evidence. Kevin returned from the bathroom, finished his beer, and left with the same easy smile he'd worn since college. The smile of a man who believed his secrets were safe. I spent the next week shopping for the perfect gift box. Something elegant but not too large, with a ribbon that would photograph well. Because this wasn't just about Diane's birthday anymore. It was about truth, justice, and the American way of handling betrayal with style. The party was scheduled for Saturday evening. Suzanne had outdone herself with decorations, catering, and guest coordination. Everyone would be there, Kevin and Diane, Pamela and me, plus a dozen other couples from our social circle. The perfect audience for what I had planned. I wrapped the receipt carefully, treating it like the precious artifact it had become. Laminated it first, to preserve it for posterity, then nestled it in tissue paper inside the gift box. Added a small card that read, "For someone who deserves the truth. Happy birthday." Pamela noticed the gift box on our kitchen counter Friday night. "What did you get, Diane?" she asked. "Something special, something she really needs." "That's sweet of you." Sweet, if only she knew. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp October weather that makes New England postcards look authentic. Pamela spent an hour getting ready, choosing an outfit that was casual enough for a backyard party, but elegant enough to make an impression. She looked beautiful, which made everything worse and better simultaneously. Ready? She asked, checking her lipstick in the hallway mirror. More than ready. We drove to Suzanne's house in comfortable silence, Diane's gift box resting in my lap like a small bomb with a very specific timer. Pamela hummed along with the radio, completely unaware that her world was about to change forever. Kevin's car was already in Suzanne's driveway when we arrived. Through the living room window, I could see him holding court near the fireplace, probably telling the story about his latest real estate triumph. Diane was in the kitchen with Suzanne, arranging appetizers and laughing about something. Normal people having a normal party, celebrating another year of normal life. I checked my watch. In 2 hours, maybe 3, normal would be a memory. "Doug!" Kevin called out when we entered. "Perfect timing. I was just telling everyone about the Henderson property." "Fascinating," I replied, which was true in ways he couldn't imagine. The party followed its predictable rhythm. Appetizers, small talk, the careful dance of suburban social interaction. I watched Kevin and Pamela navigate the room, still maintaining their careful distance, still pretending everything was exactly as it seemed. Diane looked radiant in the way that women do when they're genuinely happy and surrounded by people they love. She hugged everyone, thanked Suzanne repeatedly for organizing everything, and made sure to include the quieter guests in conversations. She deserved better than Kevin. She deserved the truth. At 8:30, Suzanne announced it was time for gifts. Everyone gathered in the living room, drinks in hand, while Diane settled into the designated birthday chair. The pile of presents on the coffee table looked festive and innocent. Books, jewelry, gift certificates, and one small box that contained enough explosive power to level several marriages. "Save the best for last," I said, when Diane reached for my gift early in the process. "Now I'm curious," she laughed. "Trust me, it's worth waiting for." Trust. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Diane opened her other gifts with appropriate enthusiasm. A cookbook from Suzanne, earrings from another couple, a spa day certificate from her sister. Each present was received with genuine gratitude and careful attention to the giver's feelings. Kevin gave her a weekend trip to Vermont, complete with reservations at a bed and breakfast that specialized in romantic getaways. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. "Your turn, Doug," Diane said finally, holding my small box with both hands. The room fell quiet in that way that happens when everyone senses something significant is about to occur. Even the background music seemed to pause. "Open it," I said. Diane untied the ribbon with careful fingers, the way people do when they want to save the wrapping paper. She lifted the lid, moved aside the tissue paper, and found the laminated receipt. Her expression changed slowly, like a photograph developing in reverse. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that might have been relief mixed with devastation. She held up the receipt, reading it silently while the room waited. Kevin's face went white. Pamela made a small sound that might have been a gasp or might have been a whimper. "Hotel Grandview," Diane said quietly. "2 guests, champagne service." She looked at the signature line. "Pamela Mercer." The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. "I don't understand," Kevin said, but his voice cracked on the words. "I think you do," Diane replied. She folded the receipt carefully and placed it back in the box. Then she looked at me with eyes that held tears, but also something else, gratitude. "Thank you," she said, "for the truth." And that's when everything exploded. The silence lasted exactly 4 seconds, I counted, before Suzanne's living room erupted into chaos. "What the hell is this?" Kevin's voice cracked like a teenager's, all his smooth real estate charm evaporating in an instant. Pamela stood frozen by the fireplace, her wine glass trembling in her hand. "Doug, I can explain." "Can you?" I kept my voice level, conversational. "Because I'm genuinely curious about the explanation for your signature on a hotel receipt for a room you supposedly never rented." Diane stared at the laminated evidence in her hands like it was an artifact from an alien civilization. The other party guests shifted uncomfortably, suddenly fascinated by their shoes or the ceiling or anything that wasn't the train wreck unfolding in front of them. "This is insane," Kevin said, running his hands through his hair. "Doug, you've got this all wrong. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation." "I'm listening." But Kevin just stood there, opening and closing his mouth like a fish drowning in air. His perfectly reasonable explanation seemed to be stuck somewhere between his brain and his vocal cords. Suzanne, naturally, recovered first. "Maybe we should—" "No," Diane said quietly, but with enough authority to stop everyone mid-sentence. "I want to hear this explanation too." She looked at her husband with the expression of someone who'd just discovered their house was built on quicksand. "Kevin, what's the perfectly reasonable explanation for my best friend's wife signing for a hotel room on the night she told her husband she was working late?" The other guests began edging toward the exits with the practiced efficiency of people who'd witnessed domestic explosions before. But I wasn't finished yet. "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I have a few more questions. Like why you've been borrowing money from me to pay for romantic getaways with my wife, or why Pamela's been getting mysterious phone calls that end the moment I walk into the room, or why you two have been playing elaborate games of social distancing at every party for the past 3 months. Kevin's face cycled through several shades of pale before settling on a sickly green that clashed with Suzanne's carefully coordinated color scheme. "Doug, please," Pamela finally found her voice. "Not here, not like this." "When then?" I turned to face her fully. "When were you planning to tell me? Next month? Next year? Our 20th anniversary?" She set down her wine glass with shaking hands. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because what I think is that my wife has been sleeping with my best friend in downtown hotels while lying to my face about working late. Please, enlighten me about what it actually is." The remaining guests were evacuating now with the urgency of people fleeing a natural disaster. I heard car doors slamming in the driveway, engines starting, the sound of suburban social circles reorganizing themselves around this new reality. Diane stood up slowly, still holding the receipt. "How long?" she asked Kevin. "Diane, honey, how long have you been cheating on me with Pamela?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. Kevin looked around the room desperately, as if the answer might be written on Suzanne's carefully chosen wall art. "It's complicated," he said finally. "No," Diane replied. "It's actually very simple. You either have been or you haven't been. The receipt suggests you have been. Your inability to form complete sentences suggests you have been. Your face, which currently resembles a bowl of oatmeal, suggests you have been." I had to admire her composure. If I'd been in her position, I probably would have been throwing things by now. Heavy things. Pamela tried a different approach. "Doug, if we could just go home and talk about this privately." "Why? So you can tell me more lies? So you can explain how hotel receipts just magically appear with your signature on them? So you can convince me that my eyes are lying and my instincts are wrong and everything is actually fine?" "I never meant for it to happen," she said, and there it was, the closest thing to a confession I was going to get. "But it did happen." "Yes. Multiple times." "Yes. In our bed too, I'm guessing." Her silence was answer enough. Diane made a sound that might have been laughter if laughter could be weaponized. "Our bed? You brought her to our house?" Kevin finally found his voice. "Diane, I love you. This thing with Pamela, it doesn't mean anything. It's just what? Just fun? Just convenient? Just something to do on Tuesday nights when your wife is working 12-hour shifts to pay for your lifestyle?" Suzanne, who had been remarkably quiet for someone who usually treated other people's drama like performance art, cleared her throat. "Maybe I should stay," I said. "Please. I want witnesses for this." Because this was the moment I'd been planning for. The reason I'd chosen a public venue instead of a private confrontation. Humiliation works best with an audience. Kevin, I continued, remember that promotion I was supposed to get last month? The one that mysteriously went to someone else with half my experience? His face somehow managed to get paler. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Maybe something you mentioned to your girlfriend here, who works in human resources and has connections throughout the business community? Pamela's expression shifted from defensive to panicked. Doug, that's not... I would never, wouldn't you? Because I did some checking this week, made some phone calls. Turns out there were some concerns raised about my work performance right around the time you and Kevin started your hotel adventures. Anonymous concerns, very specific concerns about my attention to detail and commitment to the job. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in on the four of us and our shared history of lies and betrayal. You sabotaged my career, I said, the words tasting like ashes. Both of you. You wanted to keep me dependent, keep me from getting too successful, too confident. Make sure I stayed grateful for what I had instead of reaching for what I deserved. Kevin finally managed a complete sentence. That's not true. Isn't it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you two have been playing a very long game. The affair was just part of it. The real goal was keeping me small, keeping me manageable, keeping me from figuring out what was really going on. Diane was staring at her husband like she'd never seen him before. Is that true? Did you sabotage Doug's promotion? I might have mentioned some concerns to Pamela, but concerns about what? His attitude lately, the way he's been suspicious and paranoid. I was worried about his state of mind. The audacity was breathtaking. Kevin had been sleeping with my wife, undermining my career, and lying to everyone involved, but somehow I was the one with the attitude problem. My state of mind, I repeated. Right. Well, let me tell you about my state of mind right now. I'm thinking about how many people are going to hear this story. How many mutual friends, business contacts, social connections. How many people are going to know exactly what kind of man Kevin Walsh really is. Doug, don't what? Don't tell the truth? Don't share the evidence? Don't let people make informed decisions about whether they want to do business with a man who betrays his friends and sabotages their careers? I pulled out my phone and held it up. Smile, Kevin. This is going to make a great story for social media. Local real estate agent celebrates best friend's wife's birthday by getting caught in affair. I bet that'll be great for business. You can't do that, Pamela said. Watch me. But I didn't post anything yet. This was just the opening act. The real show was still to come. Diane set the receipt down on the coffee table like she was placing evidence in a court case. I'm leaving, she announced. Kevin, don't come home tonight, or tomorrow night, or any night until you figure out how to be honest about something. She walked toward the door with the dignity of someone who'd just discovered she was stronger than she'd ever imagined. But she stopped and turned back to me. Doug, thank you. For the truth, for caring enough to tell me, for being a better friend to me than my husband was to you. Then she was gone, leaving the three of us in Suzanne's living room with the wreckage of 2 marriages and 20 years of friendship scattered around us like broken glass. Kevin looked at me with something that might have been pleading. Doug, we can work this out. We can fix this. Can we? How exactly do you fix betrayal, Kevin? How do you fix lies? How do you fix sabotage? I'll make it right. I'll call your boss, tell them the concerns were unfounded. Too late for that. It's never too late. We're friends. We've been friends since college. No, I said, walking toward the door. We were friends until you decided my wife was more interesting than my friendship. Now we're just 2 guys who used to know each other. I left them there, Kevin and Pamela and Suzanne, to sort out the aftermath of their choices. But I wasn't done yet, not even close. The real revenge was just getting started. My phone rang as I was driving home. Kevin's number. I let it ring. It rang again 5 minutes later, then again, then again. Finally, I answered. What? Doug, please, we need to talk. No, we really don't. I can explain everything. You had 20 minutes to explain everything. You chose to stand there looking like a scared fish instead. Meet me somewhere. Anywhere. Give me a chance to make this right. I almost hung up. Almost. But then I remembered the promotion, the sabotage, the careful way they'd tried to manage my life without my knowledge or consent. You want to make it right? Yes. Anything. Then stay away from my family. Stay away from my house. Stay away from my life. Because if I see you again, Kevin, if you come anywhere near what's left of my world, I'm going to make tonight look like a friendly conversation. Doug! I hung up. But I knew it wasn't over. Men like Kevin don't give up easily, especially when their carefully constructed lives start falling apart. He'd try again, probably with Pamela's help. They'd attempt damage control, try to spin the story, maybe even try to turn people against me. They had no idea what they were dealing with. I spent 12 years in IT troubleshooting other people's problems. I knew how to find weaknesses in systems, how to exploit vulnerabilities, how to make sure problems stayed solved. Kevin and Pamela were about to become my latest project. The house felt different when I walked in alone. Emptier, but also cleaner somehow, like the lies had been taking up physical space, and now there was room to breathe again. Ben was in his room, probably gaming with headphones on, blissfully unaware that his parents' marriage had just imploded at a birthday party. I envied him that innocence, even as I dreaded the conversation we'd eventually need to have. I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey and sat in my kitchen, staring at my phone. 17 missed calls from Pamela, 12 from Kevin, and a handful from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably other party guests who'd heard fragments of the story and wanted details. The whiskey burned, but it was a clean burn, honest in a way that nothing else had been lately. Pamela came home at midnight, her footsteps hesitant on the front stairs like she wasn't sure she still lived here. Maybe she wasn't. Doug. Her voice was small, uncertain. In here. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing her party outfit, but looking like she'd aged 5 years in the past 4 hours. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, her confidence completely gone. We need to talk, she said. Now you want to talk. Interesting timing. She sat down across from me at the table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together, where we'd helped Ben with homework and planned vacations and made all the small decisions that constitute a shared life. It's not what you think, she said again. Stop saying that. It's exactly what I think. You've been having an affair with Kevin. You helped him sabotage my promotion. You've been lying to me for months, maybe years. The promotion thing, that wasn't intentional. Kevin mentioned he was worried about you, and I might have passed along some concerns to a friend in the industry, but I never meant what? Never meant to undermine my career, never meant to keep me dependent on you, never meant to make sure I didn't get too successful or too confident. She was crying now, but I felt nothing. Sympathy requires trust, and trust was a luxury I could no longer afford. How long? I asked. Doug, how long have you been sleeping with Kevin? 6 months. Try again. 8 months. The truth, Pamela. For once in your life, tell me the actual truth. She stared at her hands, tears dropping onto the kitchen table. A year. Maybe a little more. A year. While I was working late to try for that promotion, she was working late with my best friend. While I was planning our anniversary dinner, she was planning hotel rendezvous. While I was trusting both of them completely, they were systematically dismantling my life. In our bed? Sometimes. In Kevin and Diane's bed? Yes. Where else? Doug, please. Where else? His office, hotels, once at your parents' house when we were visiting for Christmas. My parents' house. The place where I grew up, where family pictures lined the hallways and my mother still kept my childhood bedroom exactly as I'd left it. They'd contaminated even that. Why? The question came out smaller than I intended. I don't know. That's not an answer. I don't know how to explain it. Things between us had gotten so routine, so predictable. Kevin made me feel exciting again, desirable, like I was worth taking risks for. So you decided to take the risk of destroying our marriage. I never meant for you to find out. That's not the same thing as never meaning to destroy our marriage. You meant to keep lying. You meant to keep betraying me. You just meant to get away with it. She had no answer for that, which was an answer in itself. What happens now? She asked. Now you pack a bag and go stay somewhere else while I figure out how much of my life I need to rebuild. Doug, we can work through this. Couples survive affairs all the time. We can go to counseling, we can what? Pretend this never happened? Pretend you didn't help Kevin sabotage my career? Pretend you haven't been lying to my face every single day for over a year? I love you. No, you don't. People who love each other don't do what you did. They don't systematically betray everything their partner trusts them with. She stood up slowly, like an old woman with arthritis. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Kevin's place, maybe. Oh, wait. His wife threw him out too. Maybe you can get a hotel room. I hear you're familiar with the process. That was cruel, but I was past caring about cruelty. Cruelty was what she'd earned. After she left, I sat in the kitchen until dawn, making lists. What needed to be done? What needed to be undone? What needed to be rebuilt from scratch? The practical aspects of dismantling a shared life, bank accounts, credit cards, insurance policies, the 1,000 small financial entanglements that bind two people together. But I was also making another kind of list, a list of everyone who needed to know the truth about Kevin Walsh and Pamela Mercer. Business contacts, mutual friends, social connections, people who deserved to know what kind of individuals they were dealing with. Ben found me there at 7 in the morning, still in my clothes from the party, surrounded by legal pads covered with notes and phone numbers. Dad, what's wrong? How do you explain to a 15-year-old that his mother is a liar and his godfather is a betrayer and the world he thought he understood was built on quicksand? Your mom and I are having some problems, I said. She's going to be staying somewhere else for a while. Are you getting divorced? I don't know yet. Probably. He sat down next to me, suddenly looking older than his years. Is it because of Uncle Kevin? Uncle Kevin, the man who'd taught Ben to throw a curveball, who'd taken him to his first Red Sox game, who'd been a constant presence in his life since birth. What makes you ask that? I heard you guys fighting last night when you got home, and Mom was crying about Kevin and hotel receipts and stuff. So much for protecting his innocence. Yeah, I said. It's because of Kevin. That sucks. Yeah, it really does. We sat in silence for a while, father and son contemplating the wreckage of everything we'd thought we could count on. Dad? Yeah? Are you going to be okay? The question nearly broke me. Here was my kid, his world falling apart, and he was worried about me. I'm going to be fine, I told him. We're going to be fine. It might take a while and it might get messy, but we're going to be okay. What about Uncle Kevin? Uncle Kevin isn't our family anymore. Good, Ben said with the fierce certainty that only teenagers can muster. He's a jerk. Out of the mouths of babes. I spent Monday morning on the phone with lawyers, getting advice about divorce proceedings and asset protection and child custody arrangements. Then I spent Monday afternoon on a different kind of phone call. Walsh Realty, this is Kevin. It's Doug. Doug, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all weekend. We need to talk. We're talking now. In person. There are things I need to explain, things you don't understand about the situation. Such as? Not over the phone. Meet me at Murphy's at 6, our usual table. Our usual table. The place where we'd shared thousands of beers and conversations, where we'd celebrated promotions and commiserated over setbacks, where I'd trusted him with my doubts and fears and dreams. "Fine," I said. 6 o'clock. But I had no intention of listening to more lies. I had other plans for Kevin Walsh. Murphy's pub was exactly as I remembered it. Dark wood, dim lighting, the smell of beer and fried food and broken dreams. Kevin was already there when I arrived, sitting in our usual booth, 2 beers on the table. He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, the kind of desperate exhaustion that comes from not sleeping and not eating and not being able to fix something that's fundamentally broken. "Doug," he said, as I slid into the booth across from him, "I'm so glad you came. Talk. It wasn't supposed to happen. Pamela and me, it just sort of developed over time. Neither of us planned it. But you didn't stop it." "No, we didn't stop it." "And the promotion sabotage?" "That wasn't sabotage. I was genuinely worried about you. You'd been acting strange, suspicious, asking weird questions. I thought maybe you were having some kind of breakdown. So you decided to have me professionally evaluated without my knowledge?" "I mentioned some concerns to Pamela, and she said she'd look into resources that might help. I didn't know she was going to use it against your promotion." "You're lying." "I'm not." "You're lying, Kevin. You've been lying for over a year. You're lying right now. You and Pamela worked together to keep me manageable, keep me dependent, make sure I didn't get too successful or too confident or too capable of supporting myself without her." He stared into his beer like the answers might be floating in the foam. Maybe that was part of it. But Doug, you have to understand. I don't have to understand anything. I don't have to forgive anything. I don't have to give you another chance to lie to my face. I stood up to leave, but Kevin grabbed my arm. "Don't go, please. We can fix this. We can go back to the way things were." "No, we can't." "Why not?" "Because I know who you really are now." I pulled my arm free and walked toward the exit, but Kevin followed me. "Doug, wait." I turned around in the parking lot, and that's when I saw it. The desperation, the panic, the realization that his carefully constructed life was falling apart and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "You're going to destroy me," he said. "You're going to tell everyone, aren't you? About the affair, about the promotion thing, about everything." "Probably. That'll ruin my business, my reputation, everything I've worked for. Should have thought of that before you decided to ruin my marriage. Doug, please, I'm begging you, don't do this." And that's when something inside me snapped. All the anger I'd been holding back, all the rage and betrayal and humiliation came pouring out at once. I hit him. Not hard, not enough to cause serious damage, but hard enough to knock him backward into his car. Hard enough to split his lip and bruise his ego and make it clear that our friendship was officially over. "Stay away from my family," I said. "Stay away from my house. Stay away from my life. Because if I see you again, Kevin, the next conversation won't be nearly as friendly." He touched his lip, came away with a small amount of what I can't mention on my fingers. "You're making a mistake. The mistake was trusting you." I got in my car and drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot next to his BMW, probably wondering how his life had gone from perfect to ruined in the span of a weekend. But I wasn't done with Kevin Walsh, not even close. I had his business cards, his client list, his professional contacts. I had social media connections, mutual friends, a whole network of people who deserved to know what kind of man they were dealing with. Kevin thought losing Diane was the worst thing that could happen to him. He was about to learn otherwise. Tuesday morning, I woke up with a plan and a clear conscience. Kevin had spent 20 years building his reputation as a trustworthy real estate agent and reliable friend. I was going to spend the next few weeks tearing it down, brick by brick. But first, I had to deal with the practical aspects of my imploding life. Pamela had been staying at her sister's house since Saturday night, communicating only through terse text messages about picking up clothes and coordinating Ben's schedule. She wanted to talk things through and work on our relationship, but I was past the talking stage. I'd hired a lawyer and filed for separation. The divorce papers would follow soon enough. My phone buzzed with another text from her. "Can we please discuss this like adults?" I typed back, "Adults don't cheat on their spouses with their best friends." She didn't respond. Kevin, meanwhile, had been calling and texting constantly, alternating between apologies and threats. His latest message was particularly interesting. "If you don't stop this campaign against me, you'll regret it." Campaign. He thought this was politics. He had no idea what a real campaign looked like. I started with social media, not anything obvious or crude. I'm not a teenager having a public meltdown. Instead, I began sharing articles about trust in business relationships, the importance of integrity in professional dealings, how personal character affects professional competence. Each post was accompanied by thoughtful commentary about how difficult it can be to really know someone, how people can surprise you with their capacity for deception, how important it is to verify claims rather than simply trusting appearances. Subtle, sophisticated, devastating. Within hours, people were commenting, asking if everything was okay, wondering if there was a story behind the philosophical musings. I responded with carefully crafted ambiguity. Just reflecting on some recent experiences. Amazing how people can fool you for years. By Wednesday, the speculation was building. Suzanne, naturally, was feeding the gossip machine with carefully edited versions of Saturday night's events. The story was spreading through our social circle like a virus, mutating and growing with each retelling. But I wasn't relying on gossip alone. Kevin's real estate office was in a converted Victorian house on Main Street, the kind of picturesque location that screams, trustworthy local business. He shared the space with 2 other agents and a secretary who'd been there since the Carter administration. I knew his schedule, his habits, his routines. Wednesday afternoons, he always had client meetings from 2 to 4. Perfect timing for what I had planned. I drove to the garden center on the outskirts of town and purchased 6 bags of premium organic fertilizer. Cow manure, aged and composted, guaranteed to enrich any garden. The teenager loading it into my truck asked if I was starting a big landscaping project. "Something like that," I said. Kevin's house, his and Diane's house, though she wasn't living there anymore, sat on a corner lot with a meticulously maintained front lawn. Kevin took pride in his landscaping, often bragging about his grass being the greenest on the block. I parked across the street and waited. At 1:45, Kevin's BMW pulled out of the driveway, right on schedule. He'd be gone for at least 2 hours. The fertilizer spread beautifully across his front lawn, creating rich, aromatic patterns that would nourish the grass for months to come. I arranged it in letters large enough to be read from the street. Cheater. Then I planted a small sign near the sidewalk, the kind real estate agents use to advertise properties. "Thanks for fertilizing my marriage, Doug Mercer." Artistic, symbolic, completely legal. I was back in my truck and halfway home when my phone started ringing. Kevin's number. I let it go to voicemail. "Doug, what the hell is wrong with you? This is vandalism. I'm calling the police." I called him back immediately. "Kevin, how's the landscaping business? You spread manure all over my lawn. Organic fertilizer. Your grass is going to look amazing. You should thank me. I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. Tell them your friend gave you free fertilizer for your lawn. I'm sure they'll be fascinated." "And the sign? Freedom of speech. It's still America, isn't it?" He hung up, but I knew he wouldn't call the police. What would he tell them? That his best friend had discovered his affair and was now engaging in creative landscaping? That he was being terrorized by organic gardening supplies? Thursday morning brought more interesting developments. Kevin's business partner, Jim Morrison, called me at work. "Doug, Jim Morrison from Walsh Realty. We need to talk." "About what?" "About Kevin, and whatever's going on between you two. It's affecting the business. How so? Clients are asking questions. People are talking. There are rumors about some kind of scandal involving Kevin and your wife. Rumors? Is it true? About the affair? I could have lied. Could have protected Kevin's professional reputation even after everything he'd done to me. But why should I? It's true. Silence on the other end of the line. Jim? I'm here. I'm just processing. Kevin swore it was all a misunderstanding, said you were having some kind of breakdown and making false accusations. Does a hotel receipt with my wife's signature on it sound like a false accusation to you? You have proof? I have proof. More silence. Jim, can I ask you something? Has Kevin ever mentioned concerns about my mental health? Ever suggested I might be unstable or unreliable? Actually, yes. A few months ago, he said you'd been acting paranoid, asking strange questions about him and Pamela. He was worried about you. Right around the time my promotion got derailed by anonymous concerns about my performance? Oh, hell. Yeah, oh, hell. Doug, I'm sorry, I had no idea. Now you do. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Kevin Walsh really is. That'll destroy his career. That's the idea. Friday afternoon, Kevin's professional destruction accelerated beyond my wildest expectations. He had a listing presentation scheduled with the Hendersons, a wealthy couple looking to sell their waterfront property. Big commission, prestigious client, the kind of deal that makes or breaks a real estate agent's year. I knew about the presentation because Kevin had been bragging about it for weeks, back when we were still friends. He'd mentioned the date, the time, the importance of making a perfect impression. What Kevin didn't know was that I'd spent Thursday evening preparing a special presentation of my own. I'd created a PowerPoint slide deck titled Trust and Integrity in Real Estate Relationships. It looked professional, sophisticated, exactly like something a successful agent might use to establish credibility with high-end clients. The first few slides were standard real estate marketing material, market analysis, pricing strategies, professional credentials. But slide 7 was different. Slide 7 was a high-resolution photograph of the hotel receipt, with Kevin's and Pamela's names highlighted in bright red. Slide 8 was a timeline of Kevin's affair, cross-referenced with his public statements about the importance of trust in business relationships. Slide 9 was a collection of text messages Kevin had sent me over the past year, messages that took on entirely different meanings when viewed in the context of his betrayal. Getting the presentation onto Kevin's laptop required some creative IT work, but nothing illegal. Kevin used the same password for everything, his anniversary date with Diane, which was both predictable and ironic. His laptop was usually unlocked during client meetings, sitting on the conference table displaying his materials. All it took was a quick substitution while he was distracted with small talk. I wasn't there to witness the presentation, but Jim Morrison called me afterward with a detailed report. The Hendersons were impressed with the first few slides, he said. Kevin was hitting all his talking points about trust and reliability and putting clients' interests first. Then he clicked to slide 7. And? There was this moment of complete silence. Mrs. Henderson asked if the presentation was some kind of joke. Kevin looked at the screen and went white as a sheet. What did he do? He tried to close the laptop, but Mr. Henderson stopped him, said he wanted to see the rest of the presentation. Kevin kept clicking through slides, and each one was worse than the last. How did it end? The Hendersons walked out. Mrs. Henderson said she'd never work with someone who couldn't be trusted with his own marriage, let alone her real estate transaction. That's unfortunate. Doug, this is serious. Kevin's reputation is finished. Word is already spreading through the real estate community. He'll be lucky to sell a studio apartment after this. Jim, let me ask you something. How many deals do you think Kevin cost me when he sabotaged my promotion? How many opportunities did I lose because he wanted to keep me dependent and manageable? I don't know. Neither do I, but I'm guessing it was more than one listing. That evening, Kevin showed up at my house. I was expecting him. Desperate people do desperate things, and Kevin was nothing if not desperate. I watched him through the living room window as he sat in his car for 10 minutes, probably working up the courage to face me. When he finally got out, he looked like a man who'd aged 5 years in 5 days. I opened the door before he could knock. "Kevin, Doug, we need to talk." "No, we don't. You're destroying my life. You destroyed mine first." That was different. That was personal. This is my career, my livelihood. I have bills to pay, responsibilities. So did I. Before you and Pamela decided to sabotage my promotion. That wasn't intentional. Stop lying, Kevin. Just for once in your life. Stop lying. He looked around the neighborhood, probably noticing the neighbors who were watching from their windows. Our conversation was about to become public entertainment. "Please," he said. "I'll do anything. I'll leave town. I'll pay you back for whatever you lost. You'll what? You'll give me back the year of my life you stole? You'll give me back my trust in my wife and my best friend? You'll give me back the promotion you cost me? I can't undo what I did. No, you can't. But I can make sure everyone knows exactly who you are. This isn't justice, Doug. This is revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing." He stood there for another minute, probably trying to think of something else to say, some other angle to work. But there was nothing left. He'd played all his cards and lost everything. "This isn't over," he said finally. "Yes, it is." But as I watched him drive away, I knew he was right about one thing. It wasn't over. Kevin was the type of man who'd rather burn everything down than accept defeat gracefully, which meant I needed to be ready for whatever he tried next. The war was far from finished. Saturday morning brought the kind of October storm that makes you grateful for solid roofs and reliable heating systems. The wind was howling through the trees, rain was lashing against the windows, and the power had flickered twice before 9 o'clock. Perfect weather for what I had planned. Kevin had been quiet for 2 days. No calls, no texts, no drive-by visits to my house. In my experience, when desperate people go silent, they're usually planning something desperate. I'd been expecting his next move, and I was ready for it. Ben was staying at his friend's house for the weekend, which was fortunate. What was about to happen didn't need a teenage audience. I spent the morning making preparations. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous, just some creative home security measures that would ensure Kevin's next visit would be memorable for everyone involved. The front door was rigged with a paint can on a string, positioned to swing down when the door opened. Simple physics, perfectly legal, and guaranteed to create a lasting impression. The hardwood floor in the entryway had been treated with a thin layer of cooking oil, invisible to the naked eye but effective enough to turn any intruder into an unwilling participant in a slapstick comedy routine. The motion-activated security cameras were positioned for maximum coverage, connected to a live streaming service that would broadcast Kevin's performance to anyone interested in watching. All I had to do now was wait. Kevin arrived at 11:30, right on schedule. I'd been monitoring his movements through mutual friends and social media, tracking his increasing desperation as his professional reputation continued to crumble. 3 more clients had canceled this week, and Jim Morrison was reportedly considering dissolving their partnership. I watched from the living room window as Kevin sat in his car, probably working up his courage. The rain was coming down in sheets now, and lightning was flickering across the sky like a broken fluorescent bulb. Finally, he got out of the car and ran toward the house, collar turned up against the storm. He didn't bother knocking, just tried the front door, found it unlocked, and pushed it open. The paint can caught him perfectly, swinging down from its hiding place and connecting with his forehead with a satisfying thunk. Kevin stumbled backward, bright blue paint dripping down his face, and stepped directly into my oil slick. His feet went out from under him like he was auditioning for a Three Stooges revival. He windmilled his arms frantically, trying to regain his balance, But physics was not on his side. He went down hard, landing on his back with a splash that sent paint flying in all directions. The security cameras captured every second of it. "Doug!" he yelled, struggling to get back on his feet. "Doug, I know you're here." I waited until he'd managed to stand up, paint-covered and furious, before I appeared at the top of the stairs. "Kevin? What a surprise. Come in, come in. Don't worry about the mess. You son of a—" He caught himself, probably remembering that everything was being recorded. "We need to talk." "We're talking now. Though you might want to wipe some of that paint off your face. You look like a rejected member of the Blue Man Group." He used his sleeve to clear the paint from his eyes, which only made the mess worse. "This is harassment. This is home security. You broke into my house, Kevin. I was defending my property. The door was unlocked. That doesn't make it legal. But don't worry, I won't press charges. This time." He looked around the entryway, taking in the paint splatters and oil slick, probably trying to figure out how he'd been so thoroughly outmaneuvered. "I want you to stop," he said. "The social media posts, the business sabotage, all of it. I want you to leave me alone." "That's interesting, because I wanted you to leave my wife alone, but that didn't seem to matter to you." "That's different." "How?" "That was personal. This is affecting innocent people, my business partners, my clients." "Were they innocent when you were using your professional reputation to undermine my career? When you were leveraging their trust in you to sabotage my promotion?" Kevin tried to take a step forward but slipped again on the oil, catching himself against the doorframe. Paint handprints marked where he'd grabbed for support. "I'll make it right," he said. "I'll call your boss. Tell them the concerns about your performance were unfounded. I'll give you references, recommendations, whatever you need." "Too late for that." "It's never too late." "It was too late the moment you decided my wife was more interesting than my friendship." That's when I heard the car door slam outside. Through the window, I could see Pamela running through the rain toward the house, her hair plastered to her head and her clothes soaked through. "Doug!" she called as she reached the front door. "Doug, please, we need to—" She stopped short when she saw Kevin, paint-covered and slipping around in the entryway like a drunken clown. "What happened to you?" she asked. "Your husband booby-trapped his house," Kevin said. "I secured my property," I corrected. "There's a difference." Pamela looked back and forth between us, probably trying to figure out how her life had become a bad sitcom. "Doug, this is insane. You can't keep doing this." "Doing what? Telling the truth? Protecting my home? Making sure people know who they're really dealing with? You're destroying Kevin's career." Kevin destroyed his own career when he decided to betray his friends and sabotage their livelihoods. The storm was getting worse outside, and I could hear sirens in the distance. Probably emergency vehicles responding to power outages or storm damage, but Kevin looked nervous. "We should go," he said to Pamela. "No," she replied. "We need to settle this. All of us together, like adults." "Adults don't cheat on their spouses," I said. "Adults don't sabotage their friends' careers. Adults don't break into other people's houses." "I didn't break in. The door was unlocked. And the paint can was motion activated. Funny how that works." That's when the police arrived. I watched through the window as 2 patrol cars pulled up to the curb, their red and blue lights cutting through the storm. Kevin's face went white under the blue paint. "You called the cops?" he asked. "I didn't have to. The security system is connected to the monitoring service. When someone triggers the motion sensors, they automatically dispatch emergency responders." "This is harassment," Pamela said. "This is justice." The police officers approached the house cautiously, probably wondering what kind of domestic situation they were walking into. The senior officer knocked on the door. "Police. We received a report of a possible break-in." I opened the door, stepping carefully around the paint and oil. "Officers, thank you for responding so quickly. Sir, we need to ask you some questions about—" The officer stopped mid-sentence when he saw Kevin, still dripping with blue paint and struggling to maintain his footing. "What happened here?" the officer asked. "This gentleman entered my home without permission," I said. "My security system activated automatically." "Sir," the officer addressed Kevin, "is that accurate?" Kevin looked around desperately, probably trying to think of a story that would make him look less ridiculous. "The door was unlocked. I just wanted to talk to him." "About what?" "Personal matters." "Personal matters that required you to enter his home without permission?" "We're friends." We were friends. "It's complicated." The second officer was examining the paint can apparatus, taking notes about the setup. "This is actually pretty clever," he said to his partner. "Completely legal, too. Classic home defense." "I want to press charges," Kevin said suddenly. "For what?" the first officer asked. "Harassment. Stalking. He's been sabotaging my business, spreading lies about me." "Are they lies?" the officer asked. Kevin's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "Sir?" the officer pressed. "It's complicated," Kevin said again. "It's really not," I said. "He had an affair with my wife. I found evidence. I shared that evidence with his wife and some mutual friends. Now he's upset that people know the truth about his character." The officers exchanged glances. They'd probably dealt with similar domestic situations before. "Sir," the first officer said to Kevin, "I'm going to recommend that you leave this property and not return without permission. If you continue to have disputes with this gentleman, you should handle them through proper legal channels." "What about the paint?" Kevin gestured to his blue-stained clothes. "What about it? You entered someone else's property without permission and triggered their security system. You're lucky he's not pressing charges for trespassing." Kevin looked at Pamela, probably hoping for support, but she was staring at the floor with the expression of someone who'd finally realized how far her life had spiraled out of control. "This isn't over," Kevin said to me. "Yes, it is," I replied. The officers escorted Kevin and Pamela outside, where a small crowd of neighbors had gathered to watch the show. Cell phones were out, recording everything, and I could already imagine the social media posts that would be circulating within the hour. Kevin Walsh, successful real estate agent, covered in blue paint and being escorted away from his former best friend's house by police officers. The video would probably go viral by evening. Diane appeared at the edge of the crowd, having arrived just in time to witness her husband's final humiliation. She walked up to Kevin as the officers finished taking their statements. "Really, Kevin?" she said. "Breaking into Doug's house? This is how you thought you'd fix things?" "Diane, I can explain." "No more explanations. No more lies. No more chances." She turned to me, standing there on my front porch, while the storm raged around us. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. For telling me the truth. For treating me with more respect than my own husband did. For showing me what real friendship looks like." Then she looked back at Kevin, paint-covered and pathetic in the rain. "Happy birthday to me," she said. "Best present I ever got." The crowd dispersed slowly, neighbors returning to their warm houses with plenty to talk about over dinner. Kevin and Pamela drove away separately, their brief alliance dissolved by the reality of public humiliation. I stood on my porch watching the storm, thinking about justice and revenge and the difference between the two. Kevin had betrayed everything that mattered: friendship, marriage, trust, integrity. He'd tried to control and manipulate the people around him, thinking he was smarter than everyone else. But in the end, the truth had a way of surfacing, like oil on water. No matter how hard you try to hide it, no matter how clever you think you are, reality has a way of making itself known. My phone buzzed with notifications, social media mentions, text messages, missed calls from people who'd heard about the evening's events. The video of Kevin's paint-covered pratfall was already being shared across multiple platforms, accompanied by commentary about trust and betrayal and the importance of treating people with respect. Kevin's real estate career was finished. His marriage was over. His reputation was destroyed. Everything he'd worked to build had come crashing down in a matter of days. Some people might call that excessive. Some people might say I'd gone too far. But those people had never been betrayed by the two people they trusted most in the world. I went back inside, cleaned up the paint and oil, and poured myself a drink. Outside, the storm was beginning to pass, and I could see patches of clear sky between the clouds. Tomorrow, I'd start rebuilding my life. I'd focus on my career, my relationship with Ben, my future without Pamela and Kevin, and all the lies that had been holding me back. Tonight, though, I was going to enjoy the satisfaction of a job well done. Justice, it turned out, tasted a lot like victory. And victory, after everything I'd been through, tasted pretty good. The war was over. I'd won. Time to move on.